Hello everyone, my name is Eddie Bolen. I'm the pastor of Edgewater United Methodist Church. I'm also the pastor of Midway United Methodist Church. I want to thank you so much for taking some time and for watching this video. This is a video that is a sermon that is on living faith. And I know that you're probably already saying, oh, faith. I know everything about faith. I know what it means to live by faith. But I want to encourage you just for a minute to just pause and just listen to a few minutes. Hopefully we're going to be able to move into some ways of thinking about faith, and particularly some ways of living out our faith that maybe you've not thought about in a while, maybe something that you've never experienced before. And so I want to encourage you to do that. We're gonna ground it around New Testament book, Gospel according to Luke chapter 10. So if you'd like to, that's going to be the scripture. That's where we're going to be at. Particularly, it'll be verse 1 through 12, but we're going to talk about living faith. I do want to invite you to come and be a part of worship. If you would like to join, if you'd like to have a conversation, if you'd like to meet in person, you can come to Edgewater at 9:20 a.m. on Sunday mornings, or on Sunday mornings at Midway United Methodist Church at 10:45 a.m. We are meeting in person. We're meeting at both churches in the sanctuary. I would encourage you that if you are planning to come on a particular Sunday, to please take a minute, check your health. Just do a scan of your own self. Make sure you do not have a fever. Make sure that you are feeling well, that you are not sick on that particular day. And also, when you do come to church, you will be required to wear a face mask. You'll be required to wear a face mask that covers both your mouth and your nose the entire time. This will be in the parking lot as well as in the worship space and the sanctuary at both places too. Also maintain social distancing, at least 6 feet, at least 6 to 10 feet away from people that you do not live in the same household with. If you live together as a family, if you're in the same house, by all means, you're able to come together. Also, no handshakes, no hugs, no touching. We're also eliminating a lot of touch surfaces in the worship space itself. So you'll notice we'll not be passing around the offering plate. You'll be given a chance and an opportunity to put your offering into the plate, but we'll just not pass it around. Also have a chance and an opportunity to pray, to meditate, to spend some time in God's presence. And so I do 9:20 a.m. at Edgewater, 10:45 a.m. at Midway. Encouraged to come and to be a part of both. And so this is something I'm really excited about to start this conversation. This is going to be, I'm going to do this video, and then I'm going to do another video on living faith. So it's going to be 2 parts. Both of them are going to be centered on Luke chapter 10, verse 1 through 12. But for this particular section, one of the things that's really, and I don't know if you're at all like me, but I've been looking for those places. Where am I inspired? What's something that is bringing me hope right now that I can come into contact with? And one of those places is a book that is in the New Testament. It's a book that's in the Bible. It's the book of Hebrews. Maybe you're a little bit familiar with this, but Hebrews is one of those books in the Bible. It is amazing. It's filled with some amazing inspiration. Particularly Hebrews chapter 11 is the one that has just really been inspiring me lately. It's making me excited about what I see God doing in our world, what I see God doing in our church and in our community. But Hebrews chapter 11, the book of Hebrews itself is Hebrews. The way that I look at it, the way that I consider it, is the book of Hebrews is a commentary on the Hebrew scriptures. This is the Old Testament. The Hebrew scriptures, it just comments. They have all these foundational stories that come out of the book of Hebrews. Creation, flood, the Messiah, that Jesus is the Messiah. But faith, that Hebrews chapter 11, that is the one that is making me, that is really making me excited, is Hebrews chapter 11. And I want to, please forgive me, but I want to offer this joke. If Moses opened a coffee shop, what would the name of that coffee shop be? It would be Hebrews. Moses' coffee shop would be called Hebrews. Don't smile, don't laugh. That is not a joke that should be laughed at. However, I hope that maybe it can stick in your brain for just a little while and you'll remember Hebrews chapter 11, because it's one thing I would encourage you. Take a moment, read that chapter, Hebrews chapter 11. Let me give you some highlights, some of the things that have really excited me. This is Hebrews chapter 11. It says, by faith, by faith, by faith. By faith, Abel offered to God. Cain and Abel. Abel offered to God by faith. Cain and Abel, very first murder in the history of the world. the blood of the ground, the blood of your brothers. It's brother against brother. Very first murder, Abraham offered to God this faith, by faith. Abel offered to God. This is a foundational story, very first murder in the history of the world. And it says that it was in the context of faith. By faith, Enoch, another, you may not know who Enoch is. Enoch is in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Scriptures. By faith, Enoch was taken so that he did not experience death, never died, was taken straight into the kingdom of heaven, taken straight into heaven. By faith, Noah. You probably know Noah. If you need an ark, I know a guy. Again, don't laugh at that. By faith, Noah, warned by God about events as yet unseen, began to build an ark. There was a global flood. It was catastrophic. There were human beings that were saved because by faith God spoke to Noah and warned Noah. By faith Abraham obeyed. Again, Abraham had a son late in life. He takes his son with him on top of a mountain. God saves Abraham's son. And from that, there is a story that comes out that says there will never be child sacrifice as people follow this God, the holy, living, true God. There is no child sacrifice. There was, the ancient history of our world, there was children who were sacrificed to the gods. Not just to a particular God, but to other gods. And so here in the Hebrew Scriptures, by faith, Abraham obeyed. There's no longer child sacrifice. Soren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher, wrote a book called Fear and Trembling just on that, on the binding of Isaac. By faith, Isaac, that son, invoked blessings for the future. He was the son of Abraham and is now in a place where he is inviting blessings for the future out of the salvation that he experienced as God by faith, as Abraham responded to God. By faith, Joseph, at the end of his life, made mention of the exodus of the Israelites and gave instructions about his burial, more than a living will, but he's giving instructions about his burial. Again, Hebrews chapter 11 has this. By faith, Moses was hidden by his parents. By faith, Moses was hidden by his parents in a basket on the Nile River, abandoned, was sent down that river. There was danger that was all around them. And so in an effort to save the life of Moses, he's placed in a Moses basket. If you don't know what that is, if you've never seen one before, go over to Google images of Moses basket, and you will see images. You can even buy one. They're quite expensive, but you can even purchase one. You can put your own child in it. But Google that picture if you've never seen one before. But by faith, Moses was hidden by his parents. Moses was saved. By faith, the people passed through, again, Hebrews chapter 11. By faith, people passed through the Red Sea as if it were dry land. Charlton Heston was not the first one to part the Red Sea. This happened a long time before Charlton Heston. But mentioning that, if you've not seen that, if you've not seen Charlton Heston part the Red Sea, Google that. Watch a clip of that. It was a major breakthrough in special effects for its time, and it is well worth seeing. But all of those, that's some of the inspiration that I've been feeling just from one place. Hebrews, the book of Hebrews chapter 11. At the very beginning of that chapter, in Hebrews chapter 11, this is what it says about faith. This is what we're talking about, a living faith. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. Now, this is your definition for what faith is. Now, faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. It's Hebrews chapter 11, verse 1. The rest of the chapter of Hebrews, that's your inspiration. So your definition, your inspiration, if you're looking for a definition and inspiration about faith, Hebrews chapter 11, it has you covered. But what about faithful living? This is what we're talking about. What does it mean to live by faith? 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7, the Apostle Paul is writing to a congregation. He's writing to a group of believers. This is after the resurrection of Jesus Christ. And he says, "For we live by faith, not by sight." And this is what I want you to capture, is that Jesus calls every single one of us. Jesus is calling you. Jesus calls us to live by faith. And your playbook for living by faith, it's Luke chapter 10, verse 1 through 12. In Luke chapter 10, verse 1 through 12, what you're going to see is that outside of these 12 disciples that Jesus has given his life to, that he has inspired, that he has taught, that they have been around him, they have been living their lives together, that at Luke chapter 10, there are 70 more people that are over and beyond the disciples, the disciples, the 12, the original 12 disciples that you know about from the very beginning of Jesus' life and his ministry. He turns in Luke chapter 10 and begins to speak to 70 others. We are part of that. We are part of the disciples. We are part of the followers of Jesus that extend as those 70 others. So know these are words that are spoken to you. And Jesus sends them in pairs to go to every town and place. And so that's one of the first things about it, is that a living faith is something that we do together with other people. It's not something we experience by ourselves. We experience together with other people. We experience it most effectively, most intimately in pairs. So Jesus sends in pairs to go to every town and place. But also notice this in Luke chapter 10, verse 1, what it means to be connected to Jesus, what it means to live our lives in Jesus and with Jesus in our hearts, is that Jesus sends pairs. That is, pairs of people who have this living faith to every place that Jesus intends to go. That's again Luke chapter 10, verse 1. And the vision that we go with, the vision that you and I go with, is in Luke chapter 10, verse 2. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Therefore ask the Lord of the harvest to send out laborers into his harvest. And that is the vision around what it means to go in pairs and to live this faith that Jesus is offering us. And what I want you to notice from the very beginning is that the harvest is plentiful, that we don't have to create it, that we don't have to make it, that the harvest is there, that the harvest that Jesus sees, the place that Jesus intends to go, Jesus has already seen this. This is why it involves faith. This is why it is our faith, not what we can see already, but what Jesus has seen before us. This is where we go to. And notice the harvest is plentiful. We don't have to make it. We don't have to manufacture it. We don't have to create it. Ask the Lord to send. Now, this is the part. This is the part that I want to pause, because I think this is what's so easy for us to skip so often, is that the Lord is, we are asking the Lord to do something specifically, that is to send you and I into this harvest. And we know what it's like. We know what it's like to work in pairs. So we know what it's like to do that. I bet a lot of us know what it's like to work in pairs with someone who, well, doesn't really pull their full share. Someone that sort of slacks off in a pair. That you know, we've been paired up together, that we're going to do this task. Maybe it was at work, maybe it was at school, maybe it was somewhere else. But we're working together in pairs, and then says, you know what? Not quite feeling it with this other person. They're just slacking off the whole time. And how often have we felt this way and thought, you know what, maybe the next day they'll change. Maybe the next day it'll be different. This is the part that we really got to focus on. This is the part that we really got to recognize, that what Jesus has done, this is the genius behind the calling that Jesus has, is that when both of us feel that sense that we are being sent, this is what eliminates that whole slacking off part. This is what eliminates that not carrying my full weight, is that both people, that as we come together, this is what makes faith happen, is when we come together, we recognize that both of us, not just one of us, but both of us together, that we are being sent by God. How often do we pause and think for a minute, where is God sending me? I mean, just think about it. How often do you have that question that comes out of your mind? You say, where is it that God is sending me? Where am I being sent by God? People who feel sent. And this is why I think it's really vital for us to get this part right, because people who feel sent. This is one of the things that people will talk about. This is one of the things that people who develop other people, they talk about, that people need to have a reason for being. They need to have this desire. This is exactly what Jesus gives to every single one of us who are willing to let God really begin to influence our whole lives, who are willing to let God open up our whole lives, is that people who feel like they're being sent, people who feel like they're working on something that is bigger than their own lives, bigger than their own selves, that they are people who are happier, they're more fulfilled, Not to mention when we are being sent and when we pause and say, where is God sending me? There are extraordinary opportunities that are in front of us. This was essential. This is essential to the life of faith. It is what you see in Hebrews chapter 11 flowing off every single verse that is in that chapter. Hebrews chapter 11, realize being sent, we realize that every single one of these people, by faith, that these are people who realize that they were being sent by God. They are looked at as individuals, but I will tell you that there was a pair of people that were all around them. You can go back, and this is one of the great things about Hebrews. That's why it says almost a commentary on the Old Testament, is that everyone that you come across in Hebrews, and particularly in Hebrews chapter 11, every single person that I highlighted as I began this conversation, as I began this sermon, you can go into the Hebrew scriptures, you can read the whole story. Not just the one line description, but you can read the whole story. You can see the people that were paired around them. You can see how they were being sent. And I want you to do this. I want you to consider this. And particularly around being in pairs and being sent during this time and during this place that we find ourselves in, especially if you're watching this before the election, that I want to say to you that politicians should not be the only ones who are calling, who are texting, who are FaceTiming, who are Zooming right now, who are sending out Zoom invitations right now. But think about this too. Why do politicians do it? Why are they doing it? I am recording this on October the 23rd. Why are politicians doing it so much right now? Because they see the harvest. And they see that the harvest is plentiful for them. They recognize that they are being sent into a harvest that is plentiful for them. And what is their harvest? Well, you already know it. It's undecided voters. It's battlegrounds. It is swing states. That is the harvest that they see. And they do it. They're inspired. They're encouraged because they recognize that the more work that they do, the more they are sent, the more work they do on the ground, that this is going to make a difference in the world. And what do they carry with them as they go about to change the world? This is what I want you to pay attention to also. So they see the harvest, but notice, what do they carry with them? Well, they carry with them political contributions. They carry with them polling data. You can't even turn on the news. You can't even open a newspaper right now without seeing polls. They carry with them political contributions, polling data. They also have marketing campaigns that are targeted into the harvest. They shouldn't be the only ones right now. We are people who, if we're willing to let ourselves embrace this living faith and let it be all of our lives, then we are also people who are sent. Harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. When Jesus sends you to live by faith, what do you carry? Well, again, Luke is our playbook. Luke chapter 10, verse 4. We don't carry nothing. Carry no purse, no bag, no sandals, and greet no one on the road. Luke chapter 10, verse 4. Leave all of your stuff behind. Don't even form an alliance with someone that you meet on the road. So what's left? Well, we're in pairs. This is why we're in pairs. What's left is that we've got one another, and what's left is faith in God. And it sounds harsh, doesn't it? Well, it is harsh. See, I'm sending you again, Luke chapter 10, verse 4. See, I'm sending you out like lambs into the midst of wolves. And so that is what it means to live, to have a living faith. Is to pair up and recognize that we are being sent, and recognize that sometimes that we are being sent like lambs into the midst of wolves. So why pairs? What does it mean how do we really do this? How do we live by faith? Well, we do it by pairs because this is how discipleship happens. Equip the saints for the work of ministry. This is what ministry is. This is what it means. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 12 says that the whole thing that we do together as the people of God is that we equip the saints for the work of ministry. This is something that always happens. Happens in churches, happens in Sunday school classes, happens in all ministry teams, and it happens, this is how organizations happen, is that you're consistently equipping people for the work that is set before you. You are people who are being sent, so how are you going to do it? So equip the saints for the work of ministry. There is training that is involved. This is why we do things together in pairs, in pairs. This is the exact life that Jesus lived with his disciples. It's the life that they will pass on to the 70 others. That happens in Luke chapter 10. It is an apprenticeship model. That apprenticeship model just really quickly and just basically is that to be an apprentice of Jesus, to be an apprentice and a disciple is, well, I do it. I'm someone who has been sent. I go out, I do it, you watch, we talk. I do it, you help. And then we talk. And then that next step is you do it, I help, we talk. You do it, I watch, we talk. And then finally, you do it, someone else watches. Then you repeat the pattern. It's an apprenticeship model. And that we are sent with God's vision to do this. We are sent in pairs with God's vision to do that very thing, that we work together and we follow and we work it. We work it to a T. That's how the saints are equipped over the life of the church. That's how organizations work too. It's just organizational behavior that happens right there. Jesus says specifically what we do is we do it with each other. We do it within pairs. The harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. Take nothing with you. You were sent like lambs into the midst of wolves. And so that is what it means to have a living faith. Is it means that you are sent out, and you are sent out into a plentiful harvest, but recognize that you were sent as a lamb into the midst of wolves. And so what I want you to do, that as we come to an ending point in this conversation, as we come to an end in this sermon, is I want you to begin to, over this week, because what we're going to do is next Sunday we're going to pick this up. Next Sunday there's going to be the next video that is going to come and is going to tell you the rest. We're going to continue in Luke chapter 10. We're going to continue to follow that playbook. But what I want you to consider right now is I want you to consider, is your living faith, is the faith and the life that you're living with Jesus Christ, is it important enough for you right now to say, you know what, I'm ready to take another step? Is it important and is it vital enough for you to really ask yourselves, are you willing to be sent? Am I willing to be sent? Jesus has said that there is a harvest that is plentiful out there. And so right now what I want you to do is I want you to say, am I willing to be sent into the plentiful harvest? And if that's something that you do, then you're going to really appreciate what's going to come next week. Also, are you willing to be part of a pair? Because this is what it means. This is one of my favorite Christian theologians, Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He wrote a whole book on the church, and he expressed his vision of the church. And you know what he called it? He called it life together. Are you willing to live life together with other people? Are you willing to be part of a pair? Are you willing to be apprenticed by someone? Are you willing to apprentice someone else? And so if you are, then you can begin to live an extraordinary living faith. And I want you to do this too. I want you to recognize that at this time and at this moment, politicians should not corner the market on this. We've got a voice. We've got a voice as followers of Jesus, and our living faith, once it begins to send us out into the world, people are going to recognize it. And I will tell you this also, people are hungry for it. Next week, we're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about how do we become people of peace? How do we recognize? How do we work together with people of peace? Again, Luke chapter 10 is our playbook on this, but that's where we're heading. But right now, make that commitment and say, you know what? My living faith, the living faith that I want to live, that is important enough to me to say, you know what? I'm willing to be sent where Jesus is calling me to go. I'm willing to do it with some other people. I'm willing to do it and I'm willing to commit myself to make sure that it's not just politicians that are calling and texting and FaceTiming and sending out Zoom invitations. No, I'm ready to stand up. I'm ready to get in that game too. I hope that this is helpful for you. I hope that it really does, that it really encourages you to really focus on that living faith. If you're in a place and if you're struggling at this point and at this time, Hebrews chapter 11, that is a place of inspiration. Dig into that, start to see it a little bit clearer. If you're in a place where you're ready, if you're ready to be sent, I encourage you, let's start having a conversation with that. If you'd like some information, you can join, you can come, you can be part of the church. If you'd like some other information, just send an email to me, send an email, put a message on Facebook or something like that. We will be glad to get in touch with you. But let us let us recognize that today, all of us, not just the disciples, not just the original 12, not just Jesus, but this is something for us. It's something for us right now, this year, this day, to live by faith, to be sent by God, and also to be willing to pair up, to be part of a team. May God's blessings, may God's peace be with you all, both now and forevermore. Amen.